Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucs. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and we'll see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. And as always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Jay Recher Podcast. Happy May 15, 2025. It is a Thursday here in the Tampa Bay area. Hope everybody's doing well, whether you're here in the 813 or watching abroad. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. Subscribers over 1,300 now. Let's keep those babies moving. Wow, what a show yesterday. We got another great one for you today. A lot of great feedback on the Joe Madden interview yesterday. That'll be up. I got to put that up. It was a busy day yesterday with the Beckles and Retro podcast. A lot of things got going on. So I'll put that Joe Madden interview up on the program today. Also, what a great chat we had with all of the different guests that we were able to have on the show. Ed and Cena, man, a very in-depth conversation about all things Lightning. Erik Erlendsson is going to join us at 1 o'clock today to talk about kind of the end of the Lightning season and where do they go from here. For the first time, they got some money to spend against the cap. So cannot wait to chat with him as well. And Bob Harrig of Sports Illustrated ahead of the PGA Championship that teed off today. I went with Bryson DeChambeau. You got to, for our league that we're in, for the people with the Valspar, you got to pick the live guys because you can't pick them for any of the other tournaments. So knowing how well he did in the Masters, playing in that last group with Rory McIlroy, I'm going to go with Bryson DeChambeau to win that one. We'll give you updates throughout the program today. Great show we have for you. Again, I mentioned Erik Erlendsson joining us at 1 o'clock. Rick Stroud from the Tampa Bay Times joins us at 12:30 today. NFL Stroud on Twitter/X. And if you saw, Rick broke the news earlier today, so I'm so glad that he's going to be joining us at 12:30. Simeon Rice will be inducted into the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Ring of Honor. Well-deserved, one of the best pass rushers in Buccaneers history. He is going to join some of the elite names in the history of this organization. I know it's not organization unless it's hockey, but Simeon that is such a great thing. And Rick Stroud broke the news, so he will join us at 12:30 today to talk about that, talk about Buccaneers minicamp, and also the schedules that were announced and released last night, and we're going to go through them here momentarily. And I know these teams are not finalized yet. I know that there's free agency, there's going to be some trades, and we don't really know who's going to make these rosters, but why the hell not? The schedule came out last night. We're going to go through each game here momentarily, but I want to hear from you, and here is the link to join in on the conversation. I'm going to put this right in the chat. I want to hear from you guys. What do you think the Buccaneers record is going to be this season? After looking at the schedule, I'm going to put the schedule up on the screen so everybody can find out, you can go along with me. I'm going to go game by game. So we'll give you what I think the record is going to be. And we'll do this right before the season too. I like doing it right when the schedule comes out, and then doing it right before the season. Because, of course, not only do we not know so much about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but we also don't know about the other teams too. But it's fun. A lot of great excitement going into last night. I thought it was pretty much a dud. And again, here's the link. So feel free, if it's in the chat, click on it in the chat, whether you're on your phone or on your laptop. I want to hear from you. What do you think the Bucks record is going to be in 2025? Lady Evil, optimistically 11-6. I always appreciate your support, Lady Evil. But for all the videos last night, I know it became like this new hype thing of like, oh, here's the schedule release videos. I just thought there was a lot of redundancy. There's a lot of like Minecraft. I thought it was a big step back last night of the schedule release. The Buccaneers was probably one of the better ones with John Gruden. The excitement, people love Chucky here in the Tampa Bay area. So I thought the Buccaneers had one of the better ones. But across the board, you look at what a lot of these, and they're so long. Like, nobody's going to go through all 32 of them and watch a 6 to 10 minute video. Like, ain't nobody got time for that shit. Like, I'm not doing that. Give me 30 seconds. If it's interesting, I'll stay with it. I mean, the Jacksonville Jaguars one was one of the worst. The guy with the water, and I just, no way. No freaking way. A big time miss. I mean, look at the Los Angeles Chargers. They probably do it. I feel like the team should be limited. Like every year, only 5 or 10 teams should be able to do this, because to go through all that crap that we watched last night on social media, I think a lot of times, like, you're watching some of these and you're just looking around. It's like, anybody else watching this? This is terrible. Let the Chargers do it. Let the Bucks do it. Maybe 3 or 4 other teams. Ain't nobody got time for that. It was not. I don't think it lived up to the billing whatsoever. But it's the NFL. Even when they fail forward. So, I mean, people are still talking about it. But I wasn't a huge fan. John Mamola in on the chat. Bucks vid was 10 minutes plus, unoriginal, lazy in his opinion. I'm sure you love the Chicago Bears one, though, Johnny Mamola. No, I'm kidding. But yes, we knew what it was going to be, though. We knew that it was going to be John Gruden unpacking the box, going crazy. I don't want to see the teases of what the videos are going to be. I don't think that helps either. I think the surprising John Mimosa being a hater. John Mimosa, that's your pseudonym. When he checks into a hotel, his name is John Mimosa. Atlanta wasn't good at all. Chris Cole, I'm with you, buddy. David Terry saying 10-7 for the Bucks. I love you, David Terry, my guy. Let's see. Dolan likes the Bucks schedule. Leafs fans must be sick as fuck today. Yes. Listen, after Rick Stroud joins us at about 12:45, 12:50 today, we are going to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs being the most overrated franchise in the 21st century. And we're going to play a video from Sean Avery. If you remember Sean Avery from the New York Rangers, and he is talking hella shit about Mitch Marner. And Mitch Marner, who people here in the Bay Area, listen, I'm going to tell you something right now. Do not be surprised if somehow, some way, the Lightning maneuver some guys around, trade a guy, and find a way to get Mitch Marner here. Because I'll tell you, and I know this for a fact, it's not an opinion, John Cooper loves Mitch Marner. Loves him. And I'm talking about, this is before Four Nations. This is years ago. He was just talking about, because he worked with them with team, I'm pretty sure it was Team North America, if I'm not mistaken. But he loves this guy. He thinks he's the bee's knees. He can kill penalties. He can do the power play, blah, blah, blah. But then you watch what he did last night. And that team that lost 6-1, Toronto, you had the whole world at your fingertips. You were up 2-0. And then you have a game last night. You have an opportunity to win in front of your home crowd. You were down 6-0 before getting a late meaningless goal against Bob. You lost 6-1. Somebody actually threw their Austin Matthews jersey on the ice. You're pathetic. You're frauds. It is I'm telling you, the most overrated franchise in the 21st century. And it's not close. It's not the Dallas Cowboys. It's the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll go over it a little bit later on. John Mola, I had to cancel my Thanksgiving plans. I had a Bucks theme spread ready to go. We spoke about that last night. We were over at Ian's place about our guy, Pat Donovan. And listen, John's got to go. He's got to go get more mimosas. It's funny. Pat Donovan went and put it out on social media that the Buccaneers were going to play on Thanksgiving, and he got 23,000 views on Twitter. And I was like, oh no, like, I hope it's true. And then it comes, it comes out that it's not true. And I'm like, no, Pat, no. And this is what I love, Pat. This is what I love about Pat. Pat is one of those guys that you think like you're making fun of Pat. Like, Pat will make fun of himself before anybody else will. And he today made a big apology on air of like, I'm so sorry if I ruined your mood because I got a time and a date wrong. I loved how he leaned into it. It's not that serious at the end of the day. But I was like hoping that it was true, because Pat's not a guy that breaks a ton of news. So when that came out, I was like, oh, and then I saw Joe Bucks fan and Joe Bucks fan kind of run with it. And then Pewter Report was like, well, I don't know if I'm necessarily hearing the same thing. And I was like, oh no, Pat, no, Pat. But I love Pat Donovan. He's so much fun. Nobody better to watch a Buccaneers game within the press box. And I just, he didn't shy away from it, man. He leaned right into it. That's what makes Pat. I love him. Make sure you go check out my guys, Pat and Aaron Show, every morning, 6 a.m. on WDAE. Still got a lot of love for the guys and gals over there. All right, You guys ready? Have you had these things? Nixie sparkling water. My roommate got them. Black cherry lime. These are pretty awesome. I'm not endorsing them. They're not paying me, but no calories, no sugar, no sweeteners. These are pretty badass. So go check them out. USDA organic. I don't know if I ever buy all that stuff when they say things like that, but it is what it is. All right. So again, I want to hear from you guys. What do you think the Buccaneers record is going to be this year? There's the link. I want to hear some video calls right there in the chat. So if you just click on that link in the chat, you can join me on your phone or on the laptop. Get in on the conversation. What do you think the record for the Buccaneers is going to be in the 2025 season? Are you guys ready to see the schedule? I got it for you right here. If you haven't seen it yet, here it is. All right. There's the beginning, and we'll start at the top. We're not going to go over the preseason games. I'm not doing that. All right. We'll start with week 1 with the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. No surprise there. Week 1. I know Atlanta won both times against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. I just think things are going to be different this year. Buccaneers coming out of the gate hot. I think this is one of those classic, all right, they're probably going to split. So when are the Bucs going to win? When's Atlanta going to win? I think the Buccaneers, with the veterans that they have, the roster, and having a guy like Michael Penix in week 1, maybe you kind of catch him off kilter a little bit. Now, mind you, I wanted to do this on the air. I didn't want to do this like beforehand. I wanted to just make this live and make it feel organic and do this. But if they lose week 1, do they lose back-to-back weeks against Houston on Monday Night Football, knowing that the Buccaneers struggle in primetime? Dang. What do you guys think? Week 1, Atlanta Falcons, win or loss? I'm going to go with a win. I'm going to go with the win against the Atlanta Falcons in week 1. Baker over Penix. Defensively, I think Atlanta still has a lot to they still have a lot of room to grow. I mean, Jalen Walker was a great pick from them. They traded up to get James Pierce, the King's ransom there, but they needed help with the pass. I'll give the Bucs a win there. Week 2 going to Houston. Now, what kind of Houston Texans team are we going to see? They drafted a bunch of receivers, the teammates out of Iowa State, to go with the guys that they've already had. Of course, Stephon Diggs not there anymore, but the Tank Dells of the world still there. Nico Collins, a fantastic player as well. And what defense is going to show up, right? Very opportunistic. I'm going to go with a loss for the Bucs in week 2 in Houston, Monday Night Football, 7 o'clock start. They struggle in their primetime games, and it's a little bit – so you got to figure it's a 7 o'clock start, but it's in Houston. So, a 5 or 6 o'clock start for them probably as well. So they might still be on East Coast time. I'm going to go with David Terry and Dolan saying 1-1 after 2 weeks. You beat Atlanta, you lose to Houston. Return home for the home opener, week 3 against the New York Jets, Sunday at 1 o'clock on Fox. I think this is a slam dunk, no doubter. 2-1 are the Buccaneers after 3 games. They beat the Jets right there. The very next week, what a big matchup. I wouldn't be surprised if this was the best game in week 4. The Buccaneers host the reigning, defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. And for some reason, the Buccaneers just seem to be the kryptonite for the Philadelphia Eagles. I got the Bucs winning this game in week 4 against the Philadelphia Eagles to move to 3-1 on the season. Listen, Philly's a team where they either have some issues early on and then they figure it out as the year goes on, or they're really hot out of the gates and then they stumble a little bit later on. But I just feel like when these two teams match up, and now you're getting like this Des Watson playing this game, right? Does he help with the tush push? Even if he doesn't, with a guy like Vita Vea in the lineup, the Buccaneers have proved in the past that they've had some success against that short running game. So I'm going to go with the Buccaneers winning that game against the Philadelphia Eagles in week 4. I think week 5, they travel to Seattle against the Seahawks, and I think they win that game as well. Seattle's a really good team. We know, and Mike, what he was able to do, Mike McDonald in year 1 with Geno Smith, change at quarterback now with Sam Darnold being the guy there. But I still think the Bucs are just too much. So I got the Bucs after 5 games. And let's not stop there. I think they come back home, and I think they win against the San Francisco 49ers. I think it's a 5-1 record after week 6. I don't think San Francisco is going to be as strong as they have been in years past. It's just, listen, this is what happens. Over the years, when you have so many studs, especially on the offensive side of the ball, I just think it's kind of like a war of attrition here. A year older for Christian McCaffrey, no Deebo Samuel. Offensive line getting older. I got the Bucs with the win in this one as well. So 5-1 are the Bucs after 6 games. And then this is where they kind of stumble just a little bit. I think they go up to Detroit. I think they take a loss in this one to the Detroit Lions. Monday Night Football. The primetime woes for the Bucs continue. So they fall to 5-2. But hey, listen, after 7 games, 5-2, I think they'll take that. Next game, week 8 against the New Orleans Saints, Sunday at 4:05, traveling to the Big Easy to take on one of their biggest rivals. The quarterback situation and just the rest of the roster makeup. I'm not sold. I'm not sold on the New Orleans Saints. I think the Buccaneers win this one as well. 6-2, I have the Buccaneers after 8 games going into the bye week. What do you guys have the Bucs after 8 games? I want to hear from you. Again, the link is... I'm going to put it right here again for you guys. There's the link. There's the link. So you can click on it right there in the chat. Where do you have the Bucs after 8 games? I have them 6-2 after 8 games. Their 2 losses coming in week 2 in Houston against the Texans on Monday Night Football, and then in week 7 against the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football as well. Dolan agrees that the Bucs will lose to Detroit. David Terry 6-2 as well after 8 games. I mean, I think even if there's a game off, like even if you have them losing to the Eagles or them losing to the Niners, I mean, 5. This is a very. I think when you look at the no doubters, right? The Jets, I think, is a no doubter. I think the Saints is a no doubter. I really think the San Francisco 49ers game is a no doubter. Right? So I mean, right there in those spots, like you're at the worst, what is this Buccaneers team going to be after 8 games? At the worst, I think they're going to be 4-4. But what they have to really try to prevent is what we've seen in the last couple of years, and that is that swoon in the middle of the season. And I think that they're going to avoid that this year, and here's the reason why. The teams that they play on each side of the bye and when the bye is. That's the biggest reason why I don't think they're going to have that mid-season swoon, is because you remember last year when they had those 4 games back to back, you're like, oh my God, how the hell are they going to win any of these games? And then, oh yeah, you add in the injuries to Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Like it just wasn't conducive. So, I mean, you kind of saw that coming. For a lot of people that want to discredit Todd Bowles and say, I can't believe, like, I don't know if many teams wouldn't have struggled in the middle of the season last year like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, you played Baltimore, you played San Francisco, you played Kansas City, and then, oh yeah, you lose Godwin and Evans to injury. I don't know if that's, you look at Todd Bowles and like, wow, you should have had your team more prepared. I think that's unfair to say that. You face Detroit, which is going to be a tough matchup in week 7, but right before the bye, you're going to New Orleans to take on the Saints. Who's going to be their quarterback in that game? Probably not going to be a world beater. Then you come back on the other side after the bye, and then you face the New England Patriots at home. Drake May, year 2. I'm sure this team is going to be better with Mike Vrabel at the helm than what we saw last year with Gerard Mayo. But I think these two teams are they're just in completely different like parts of their journey when it comes to being a successful football team. When you look at where the Buccaneers are at, they're knocking on the door of an NFC championship game and a Super Bowl, and New England was, this is a team that's still drafting high in the draft and still working with a second-year quarterback. I don't have any issues. I'm not worried about that game at all. So I think the Buccaneers will be 7-2 after that game against the New England Patriots. Let's hear from some of you guys. Chris Cole, Bucs have started 2-0 for 3 years in a row. You got that right. David Terry, for some reason we struggle coming off the bye. L to the Patriots. Okay, we'll keep a close eye on that one. Dolan, I'm with you. Todd, solid coach. I am again, I've said this for a long time. I was one of the people that was very apprehensive when it came to Todd Bowles, knowing that, with half of my family members being Jets fans, like I saw how that was just like a precipitous fall, and it was just ugly. And I was like, be careful what you wish for. Be careful, guys. May not be great, but I've been so impressed how he's changed. I've been so impressed about how he's incrementally gotten better and empowered his assistants and, gotten rid of certain coaches. And also being around him, being around the team, even when they have struggled in the middle of the season, like they didn't fly off the handle, man. They didn't jump ship. They didn't abandon their guy. And that's important to know. And that's just something that you got to, I really hope everybody remembers that when we're talking about the offseason or in the middle of the season, everything with Todd Bowles. Let's remember what happened with the Liam Cohen situation, right? Like Todd Bowles wouldn't have done something like that. Todd's a guy that's a respected man around the league. We talk about the Shiloh Sanders thing and why Deion is so comfortable. And I brought this up to Ian the other day. I'm not talking about Deion the football coach. I'm talking about Deion the dad. Deion the dad, and listening to what he had to say about Shiloh going to the Buccaneers. Like, that's your son at the end of the day. And he was okay with him going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because he knew that Todd Bowles was a football guy and he was going to be, he was going to give him an opportunity. The culture is legit. It can't be overstated. Stash, I think 5-3 at the worst. I agree with 6-2, but I could see him be 7-1 if the defense really comes on like the staff is hoping. Baker has to win a primetime game at some point, right? Maybe. After the bye, we only lose to the Bills and the Rams and then finish the season with a 5-game winning streak from Dolan. The culture that Bowles has instilled in that locker room is so underrated. You got that right, my friend. All right, let's look at the back half of the schedule here. Again, I have the New England Patriots as a win for the Buccaneers. So 7-2 going into week 11 against the Buffalo Bills. November 16th. I don't know what the weather is going to be like there. I think this is where the Bucs go on a little bit of a skid. I think they go on a 2-game losing streak here. I think they lose to the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo in week 11. And then you go cross country Sunday night against the Rams and Matthew Stafford. I think they're going to be looking to bounce back, but unfortunately they lose 2 in a row, 7-4. And that's when the questions are going to start going, oh my gosh, what's going on with these guys? And then they all the way back, home against Arizona in week 13. I got to win in that one to move to 8-4. New Orleans Saints, I got to win for that one, 9-4 at home. I think this is the game where they slip up a little bit. You give the Falcons some credit. Listen, the NFL is such a hard league to kind of understand what's going on. You think you have a team pegged. Remember, the Bucs were 2-0 last year at home playing the Denver Broncos with a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. I don't know anybody that picked the Buccaneers to lose that game. And they got smoked. That was the worst game they played all year long. Denver punched them right in the mouth. Just the way it goes, man. That is the way it goes sometimes. So 9-4, I had them. Atlanta Falcons game, I think that's going to be the kind of the flip side. Atlanta gets them in that one. 9-5, the Bucs there. And then the final 3 games. Listen, you go to Carolina against the Panthers. That was a rough one for the Bucs last year, and it took some amazing plays down the stretch for them to be able to come back and win that one. I think they finish it out on a 3-game winning streak. 12-5, is that a possibility for the Buccaneers? Could be. I mean, offensively, you look at what this team was able to do last year. The defense has to pick up the slack this year. And I'm not saying they have to completely flip and they're the side of the ball that has to carry everything, but you need more. And you need guys that are going to be able to get home without all of these crazy freaking blitz packages and crazy schemes that we know Todd loves to do that, but there just has to be some just natural, backyard football, go get the quarterback type of stuff. And we just haven't seen that from the Buccaneers the last couple of years. We've just been hanging our hat on, all right, well, JTS, now's the year, now's the time. Never happened. Yaya Diaby. Everybody talks about the pressures, which is great, and that's just fine. But the pressures are a statistic you don't know until after the fact. Oh, yeah, did a good job. He was around the quarterback. The Buccaneers don't need guys around the quarterback. They need guys to bring down the quarterback. That's something this year that you need to see. The investments of bringing Hassan Reddick in, you're hoping that guys like Yaya Diaby and Chris Brazzell take that step forward. You need that. You need that if you're going to be a team that is going to be not just a factor in the division, but the conference or the league as a whole. the expectations for teams are completely different in sports, right? You look at certain teams, and again, we just mentioned the New England Patriots. Like, what is Mike Vrabel going to be looking at for his team when he plays the Buccaneers after the bye? All right, that's a measuring stick. That's a litmus test for them. Where are we at? Where are we at when it comes to one of the teams in this league that are consistently in and around the playoffs? The Buccaneers are so much farther along in their journey. They have to win games like that. It'd be nice to win some primetime games this year, but they have to prove it. They have to prove that they are going to take that next step in the maturation of this team, because I'll be completely honest with you. As much as we look at this team and say, hey, they're a contender in the playoffs, if we're having the same conversation after the season this year of a team that just won the division and they lost in the first round of the playoffs, like, the things have to change. Like, the questions and the commotion gets louder. You want to see steps of progress. You want to see teams moving forward. You want to see, all right, like, this is a young team. They're learning how to lose before they win. All right, they made the playoffs. They won a playoff game. Like, and we know progress isn't just consistent every step forward. Obviously, we got a little spoiled here from the Brady years, but nobody expected that to happen. You thought, all right, make the playoffs with Brady, make a nice little playoff run, and then by the time his tenure is done, maybe contend for a Super Bowl. He threw that recipe right out the window, right off the rip, boom, winning the Super Bowl in year one. So that kind of throws, it distorts things a little bit. But this Buccaneers squad, you're looking at what they're able to do in 2024 and say, all right, well, they were able to sustain some injuries. You're able to play some good football on the offensive side and be able to really have a decent record with the defense that left a lot to be desired, I think, when it comes to taking away the football, getting to the quarterback, and being a top-tier defense. That's the area of growth. And that's why a lot of people wanted to see, or whether it's the draft, whether it's free agency, whether it's via trade, defensively, be a force to be reckoned with. Because when we look back at 2020, and we look at, oh, yeah, of course, you're going to look back at Tom Brady because he's the greatest quarterback of all time. And you look at Antonio Brown and Gronk and all these different guys. But defensively, you had all of those guys at the peak of their powers, like, working together. Like, Devin White was never as good as he was right there. Going into the following year, people were talking about Devin White being an NFC or NFL Defensive Player of the Year candidate, right? You had Jason Pierre-Paul kind of on his last legs, but doing everything he could to get to the quarterback. And Ndamukong Suh forming that 1-2 punch with Vita Vea in the middle. Shaq Barrett, right? What he was able to do rushing from the opposite side of JPP. And then, of course, Levante David and, the rookie play of Antoine Winfield Jr. and Jamel Dean and Sean Murphy-Bunting and Carlton Davis. You know all the names. But that was a defense where people knew, oh, shit, even if we hold down their offense, we still got to contend with their defense. And that's where the Buccaneers have to get to this season. There's going to be growing pains. We see that with every team across the National Football League. But you have to see a game or two this year where the defense wins the game. Remember a couple years ago where Shaq Barrett, it was the game, I think it was against Chicago, against Justin Fields, where he had the pick six in the end zone. It was an emotional, you need a couple games like that this year. If you want to prove to me and you want to prove to people around the country that this is not just a winner of a bad division, a team that is just littered with offensive weapons, and when they're not scoring, that's when maybe you can catch them in a vulnerable spot. You have to win some games 17-14. You got to win a game where maybe the only points that you score via the touchdown is a pick six or a scoop and score. Like, that is the type of traits and characteristics that a championship football team has. I mean, look at the Eagles last year. As much as we talk about the way that they were able to run the football and the way that you have the A.J. Brown on one side and Devontae Smith on the other and Dallas Goedert there at the tight end spot and what Jalen Hurts can do offensively, look at how many guys that they had circling on the defensive line. Look at the draft picks that they invested at the cornerback position. Zach Bond being an all-pro guy as a free agent signing. Like, those are the kind of things that you need to see from the Bucs this year. And if you do, hey, now we could be having a serious conversation about them not just being a contender in the division, maybe the conference, and maybe a Super Bowl contender as well. All right, we're going to talk some more Buccaneer football. We're going to do it with the one and only Rick Stroud from the Tampa Bay Times. Rick, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Hey, Jay, I'm doing well. How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you, my friend. And you broke the news today. Simeon Rice going into the Buccaneers Ring of Honor. Long overdue, my friend. One of the best pass rushers for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in their franchise history. Just really, really cool to see.
Yeah, he's well deserving. Obviously, there's a lot of guys that are deserving, but he's the first player, I think, in about 3 years or so that has gone into the Ring of Honor. They've had some coaches and whatnot. And, when you look back at those teams when they really started to hum, they had a great defense in '99. They shut down the greatest show on turf. They should have won that game 6-5. And yet they weren't, quite as good until they got Simeon Rice. I talked to Tony Dungy, who said he was really the missing piece to have that edge rusher to go with that push that they had inside with Warren Sapp and Booger McFarland and those guys. And, of course, Derek Brooks. You had 4 Hall of Famers. I think Simeon is a Hall of Fame player, too. If you look at his numbers, 120-something sacks. He averaged better than 10 sacks a year. He did it for a long time. But it's hard to get more than 4 players off a defense that won 1 Super Bowl. And so he's still been kind of on the outside looking in. Yeah, but I'm happy for Sim. He was a character of the game, man. He had his own way of his little sing-song, way of talking and things like that. And just a great athlete and a great player. And so it'll be fun to see him again.
Is there any chance that we'll see anybody else in the Ring of Honor this year, Rick, or is it just going to be him?
No, I think it's just one. The Glazers have been very intentional about how fast they want to put people in, how often they want to, tap into past times. We've seen Doug Williams go in. We've seen some of the Jimmy Giles and some of the older school guys go in the past. And then, Malcolm Glazer and Bruce Arians, we've seen of late, Monty Kiffin. So there's really a lot of deserving people. And I just think they want to be very, cautious about how fast and how many they put in at once. Look, you still have guys like James Wilder and Warwick Dunn and I would submit Gerald McCoy and certainly look at who's on this team right now. Hell, Tom Brady is probably going to be in the Ring of Honor before long, right? So there's still some room on the wall. You can start putting them on the west side as well. So they'll find a way to put all those names up there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And mentioning the pass rush, I was just talking about it before you came on. I think that's one of the biggest things I'm looking forward to in the 2025 season is, I know Todd has all these plans and he has all these crazy schemes, or he's dropping Vita into coverage and he loves to play. He loves to play that game. But, to get home with 4, to be able to just kind of be like, hey, we're just going to run maybe a little bit of a vanilla defense right here. Go get the quarterback. I mean, what do you see as far as the pass rush here? Because I think it's easy to look at, all right, Hassan Reddick. I've said this for years. It's easy to look at the guys you draft and the guys you sign and say, all right, the pass rush should be better. But I look at Yaya Diaby, I look at Chris Braswell. It's always tough to gauge how much better incrementally a guy is going to get from year 1 to year 2 or year 2 or year 3. What gives you optimism or pessimism about this pass rush going into 2025?
Well, look, I think Hassan Reddick's going to make really good players out of those other guys. I mean, look, when he was humming, and I still think he has plenty in the tank, what they're betting on, he had that trade to the Jets and he wanted a new contract and he held out. They look at that year as a wash. But before that, Jay, this guy was one of the top pass rushers in the game, and he's motivated, right? Guys are getting $30 million now. He's 30 years old, so he's not the youngest player in the world, but he feels like he still has another contract in him. So he's absolutely going to be something that defenses have to account for. And really, they should be able to have an outside pass rush when you got those 2 guys inside and Cansey and Vita Vea pushing the pocket like that. So I look for Yaya to take a step up. He got a lot of attention last year. He got a lot of chips and a lot of tight ends and guys coming from him in all directions. And that takes an adjustment. But with Reddick on that side, he'll probably get more one-on-one pass rushes. And look, they love the guys that they took in this draft. I mean, they really do. This Walker kid, David Walker, from Central Arkansas, is a special pass rusher. And I know he did it at the lower level. But what you want to see is a guy that dominates at that level, and he did that. I think that, they've got some other guys. I think Elijah Roberts, was a premier pass rusher at SMU. You probably saw him play against the Bulls a few times. Before that, he was in Miami. He stepped it up, and he's got versatility. He can play inside, one of those inside positions on the defensive line as well as rush. So they've got to get something going with some of those young guys. And Braswell has to improve, right? He has to improve his second year. That's when you're going to see the biggest growth. I thought his last 5 games were his best. He did get some pressures, but it's all about getting sacks. So what also will help that is to have a little bit better coverage on the outside. They work hand in hand. You've got to lock down some receivers for those guys to get home to the quarterback. So, drafting two guys at corner, I think, is going to help them as well.
Yeah, you mentioned those two guys, and I want to ask you about Parrish and Morrison.
Yeah.
First about Parrish, I don't know if it stood out to you, but you look at this guy, you're like, all right, not the vertically challenged guy. He just looks like one of those guys that's going to play in the slot. But Todd Bowles kind of pumped the brakes on that a little bit. He's like, no, he's got versatility, and I think that selection and that comment from Todd Bowles, you don't want to read too much into it, but it just feels like he wants to be more versatile on the back end there. Yeah. So your thoughts on Parrish, and I want to ask you about the pick sixes. We know it's underwear football right now. Right. Any concern about Morrison because of the injury? And I know at this time of year, Rick, anytime we have a conversation about injury, everybody's very optimistic, but I also am very apprehensive of the first thing we want to talk about a rookie player, a guy that's the second round, is injuries. I don't want to have that conversation too much going forward.
Yeah, it usually doesn't work out too well. I mean, that was a risk, and they admitted it was a risk. And it's interesting that you're trying to find a corner to replace a guy in Jamel Dean and the year before Carlton Davis, or guys that couldn't stay on the field. Right. And then you take a chance on a guy like Morrison who couldn't stay on the field. Now, he's had a situation where, the labrum tear in the hip is not a small thing. They think some of that might have to do with his, just the way he grew. He had that happen to him on the other hip in high school. So they're hoping he comes back from that. But there's no question they rolled the dice a little bit here. Now, if they win, they've got themselves a first-round pick. I mean, this guy is a ball hawk. He's everything that Todd Bowles loves. He can play with his back to the football. He can face the quarterback. And the biggest thing is his awareness on the field. He knows where the ball is going to be, and it tends to find him. So he's an outstanding kid. His father played in the NFL with Bowles for a couple of years and with the Washington Redskins. So he's got the pedigree, and he went to Notre Dame. He was a star. It matters to him. So if he can get healthy, but that's a big if with a guy that you take that has an injury flag coming out. Parrish, though, surprised. He opened a lot of eyes, I think, maybe to some of us that were out there. But, we assumed at 5'9", you're going to be competing for the slot, maybe with Christian Izien. And Bowles came out right away and said, no, this guy's an outside corner. He's a starting corner in this league. He can play inside, and we're going to try to cross-train him. But we feel like he's good enough to play out there at 5'9". That's usually a matchup problem. You see corners are longer now and taller because that's what the receivers look like. But this guy had no trouble getting vertical a few times in practice. And, sometimes, Ronnie Barber wasn't the biggest guy in the world. He did play a lot of slot corner, but he also could cover out there. So you just got to put him on the grass and see what you got. But I think they got better. Again, the injury thing is going to matter with Morrison, but there's no question they needed to get better at corner because we saw way too much soft coverage last year, especially when they had injuries.
Too much soft coverage and too many guys that were special teams players playing there, especially the red zone. You're like, oh my God, I don't know who you blame in that situation. I understand. I understand the Emeka Egbuka pick. I understand, a great guy in that spot. And I understand the rationale for Jason Light, and you're just drafting, best player available. But there's still a part of me, Rick, that goes, if Godwin's healthy and Jalen McMillan takes that, your first round draft pick is your wide receiver 4 in week 1 of 2025. And for a team that has deep playoff aspirations, I wonder, are you sacrificing a little bit for the short term for the long term when it comes to that pick?
Yeah, it was an interesting pick. I think they fell in love with the person as much as they did the player. He was just such a clean guy. He made a bit difference in that Ohio State locker room, and the pedigree of those guys coming out of Ohio State at receivers with the Marvin Harrison Jr.'s and others. I mean, Emeka's right there with them, right? A couple of 1,000-yard seasons. He's a precise route runner. He is, for all intents and purposes, Chris Godwin. I mean, he has the same sort of maturity, can play in the slot. And I think this might be as much a tell about Chris Godwin. Now, they say he's hitting all his landmarks, but let's be honest. The guy had his ankle turned around the wrong direction. He's had 2 horrific injuries. We saw that he wasn't the same guy the first year back from the knee injury. Who's to say that he's going to be the Chris Godwin that was leading the NFL with 50 catches when he got hurt? I think what this allows them to do is not rush him back, right? Make sure that you've got him in good shape, and you can play Emeka right away. I mean, he is a plug-and-play guy, and for as much as we talked about Jalen McMillan, who did a great job the last 5 games with the 7 touchdowns, Emeka Egbuka is probably a better player,
Right.
and he may, if it comes down to it, he may be the next guy on the field. But they've absolutely got some depth now. And look, Mike Evans is going to be 32 years old. And he's not getting, guys don't get less injured and more productive as they go along. It took him the last play of the regular season to get his 1,000 yards. So they have to protect themselves for the future as well as right now. When those guys didn't play, when Godwin and Mike Evans were out, they scored points, but they scored about a touchdown less a game, and they were 0-4. And that left an imprint on guys like Todd Bowles saying, hey, it's about scoring points. If we can score 29.5 a game, then we're going to win a lot of games. I'll do some stuff on defense, but you can't be hamstrung because of the receiver position. You got two guys, one's hurt, and one's going to be 32.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Two of the big names when it comes to guys that weren't drafted, but are Shiloh Sanders and Dez Watson. I mean, you look at those two guys, and to be able to see Dez out there, it's one thing to watch him in Florida. It's another thing to see him on TV. It's another thing to be out there like we were last weekend and see him in a land full of giants be the biggest one, right?
Yeah.
What's the realistic possibility, Rick, that either one of these two guys makes the 53?
Yeah, well, I think Shiloh has an excellent chance because I think, for one, he's a mature guy. He played 6 years of college football, and let's be honest, his dad was a pretty good player himself and knows how to play defensive back. So I imagine, he's probably absorbed as much about playing that position as a lot of guys back there. Day one, we know he was a great communicator. Todd Bowles called him out for that. That's what you want in your safety. Their job is to make sure everybody knows what they're doing and they're lined up. And the fact that Jordan Whitehead is not back. He had that accident. I don't know what his future is in football, but it's not going to be with the Tampa Bay Bucks. So you have an opportunity. We'll see, what they're going to do as far as, who's going to play opposite Antoine Winfield Jr. But I think Shiloh has a chance to make this team. You have to do it on special teams, have to be kind of a depth safety, somebody that can go in there and play when they need him to. And I think he can do that. As far as Desmond goes, realistically, look, you really want to be careful here, right? Because you're talking about a man's life as much as anything. Mm-hmm. I know he played at Florida and it's hot there and all of that. But at 400 and whatever odd pounds he weighed, it's the NFL is a different animal, right? It's a different pace in practice, different expectations during the week and in games. And so the first thing you have to do is have him commit to a plan, get him under 400 pounds. I would think that they would want at minimum. But there's no question. You watch him move; it's unbelievable what an athlete. You can see the athlete in him, and you feel like that if he were to get himself in good shape and be safe, that he could do a lot of things for you. I mean, it's just hard to move that much of a man. You got him and Vita Vea. I mean, what do you do in a short yardage situation? So I think he has a chance to stick around. I don't know that he'll make the 53 right out of camp. I think he has a lot of work to do, on his body, and they'll get him right for that. But interesting prospect, there's no doubt about it, and just a great kid. I mean, he handled everything with great humor and everything else.
Last Bucks question for me, Rick, before I ask you about some of the personal stuff that you got going on. Linebacker position. I was hoping that there was a guy that they looked at in the draft that could go next to Levante David. The chips didn't seem to fall in that. Yeah. I'm one of the things that stood out to me last year was when they were talking about Servassier Dennis, and they was just like, no, he's out for the year. And they're just, again, you're banking on guys to be healthy that have not shown to be healthy. What would they do without Servassier Dennis? Like that's their hope. Everything is like, hey, look at how well he was able to defend the pass when he was in there. I get that. But, the most important ability is availability. And Rick, if he's not there, like, what does this Buccaneers team do next to a guy like Levante David, where we know, the numbers are counting down to how many games he's going to be, playing with the Bucs? Yeah,
it's a position that's a concern. They don't have a lot of depth. And you do worry about Levante David, who has, beaten Father Time to this point, but it is undefeated, and he'll be 35 years old when this, if he's not already, when the season starts, and that's as old as Derek Brooks when he quit. So Levante makes up for maybe what he's lost in foot speed with just his instincts and his ability to know where to be. I think, they knew that Servassier had a shoulder coming out of college. It wound up getting him. He had to have surgery on it. I think if he's better and he's healthy, anything can happen, but they're pretty comfortable with him. But then they went out and, they essentially made a trade with KJ Britt and veteran from Miami that,
Walker,
exactly. Walker Jr. And you've got a guy that's played a lot of football. He's 29 years old. I think where you fall into the trap and where it gets dicey is if you lose a starter and you go to somebody who hasn't played, right? They did kind of that with Josh Hayes at corner last year, right? It just doesn't work out. You want to be in a position where you have veterans on the field that you at least know you can get through a game. He's not going to hurt you. He's going to be where he needs to be. He's going to make plays. Played a lot of football. He's 29 years old. So I think they've helped themselves from a backup situation, but there's no question that they're counting heavily on having, Levante back and look, you got to have Voss. Like, you have to have him cover receivers and do all that. That's a big hole in this team. There's no way around that. They didn't address it in the draft per se. I know they got some free agents in camp they like, but if there's a breakdown on this defense, it's going to be right there in the middle.
Rick, let everybody know when they can hear you, where they can read you. I know we've been telling everybody.
TampaBay.com, Tampa Bay Times. You guys should know that. And then I've been doing something with Neil Hardman on ESPN Tampa Bay, which is 11:50 a.m. And you can look up the FM component. But we're on from 9 to 10 a.m. Just talking a little Tampa Bay sports, and I don't have enough to do, Jay, so I gotta stay busy.
Sports Day Tampa Bay, a father and a husband and a great all-around guy. Again, I stress it to everybody out there, man. Support local. Our friends at the Tampa Bay Times, man. Get a subscription for you, your friends. Every little bit helps. Everybody always talks about the coverage of Tampa Bay sports and what we can do to help. There it is right there. Subscribe to the Tampa Bay Times today. Rick, always a pleasure, man. I know you're a busy man. Thank you, pal. Talk soon.
Appreciate you, brother. See you.
You got it, man. The one and only Rick Stroud from the Tampa Bay Times. Again, sign up for the Tampa Bay Times today. Every subscription helps, man. It really does. Some really, really good stuff there from Rick Stroud. Wow. We tackled a little bit of everything there, didn't we? A little bit of everything. Some breaking news here when it comes to the Rays. Josh Lowe off the IL. Travis Jankowski now on the IL. I know he was dealing with a little bit of a groin issue, so all right. There you go. All right. Yeah, so there you go. The Rays reinstate Josh Lowe. Oblique strain from the IL. Plays Travis Jankowski. Left groin strain on the IL. Okay. That's a step in the right direction. There you go. All right. So I want to be able to play this for you guys. All right. So I was talking about this earlier on the program. Okay. When you look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, in my opinion, they are the most overrated franchise in the 21st century. And when you look at what happened to them last night against the Florida Panthers, it was one of the most embarrassing performances that we've seen from a professional sports team in forever. You were up 2-0 in this series. 2-0 against the Florida Panthers, the defending Stanley Cup champions. You had this. You were in control, all right? This is a different year. This is the last year with Matthews and Marner and Nylander and Tavares and all these guys, like all of you together. This year is going to be different. That's all everybody kept saying. And then you look when you have an opportunity right in front of you. Game 5, series tied at 2. Your home building, the place is rocking. And then you lay an egg like that. You lose 6-1. It should have been 6-0. You got a worthless, meaningless goal at the end of the game against Bobrovsky. Didn't mean a damn thing. The effort was terrible last night. Just watching that game, I don't want to say I couldn't believe it because I've seen this story before when it comes to Toronto. All the hype. This year is going to be different. And it's not just from the fan base. You look at hockey media. Go watch some of the videos. Go read some of the articles ahead of this series, ahead of this postseason, ahead of this year as a whole. Everybody is soaking it up. They're sopping it up. It's like a freaking Red Lobster biscuit, like a breadstick at Olive Garden with the butter. You're sopping it all up. This is a different year for Toronto. Bullshit. No way. Look at what happened last night. Again. And this is what we hear year in, year out. It's going to be different. This team has won 2 playoff series in 21 years. Why would this year be any different? And then when you look at this, and this is what I was bringing up earlier on in the show, Sean Avery, NHL player, longtime NHL player, not a fan of Mitch Marner. Watch the effort here from Mitch Marner, one of the better players on the team, probably one of the better players in the league, excuse me. And there's a lot of people in the Tampa Bay area that want Mitch Marner here. John Cooper's probably one of them. But I want you to watch this play. Watch Sean Avery break it down. This play right here encapsulates what is wrong with Mitch Marner, what is wrong with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Okay? Look at the score. It's 2-0. You're already down 2-0. And I want you to watch Mitch Marner on the right wing and the carelessness that this dude is playing with. And also, he doesn't want to be hit. Just watch this.
Watch Mitch the bitch. Mitch, the regular season bitch. This is a regular season play. He thinks he can take his time in the playoffs, avoid a hit. Fucking bullshit backhand pass up the middle, turnover. Now gets beat to the back door, stick check in the back of your fucking net. 3-0 at home. Watch Mitch the bitch. Mitch, the regular season bitch. This is a regular season play. He thinks he can take his time in the playoffs, avoid a hit. Fucking bullshit backhand pass up the middle, turnover. Now gets beat to the back door, stick check in the back of your fucking net.
Sorry. You can't play like that in the postseason. You cannot think in your right mind that that is acceptable play in the playoffs. Can you imagine if Nikita Kucherov did that? I would say something about it. You know me. I don't care who it is. A player of that caliber that is going to warrant 10, 11, $12 million on the open market next year makes a play like that. Oh, my Lanta. To go down 3-0. And then, and you're right, Dolan, and we want him to come here. Hell no. No, not a chance. And I know some of the apologists will be like, oh, he's just trying to make a play. That's not how you make a play. A spinorama backhand pass in the neutral zone, and then you don't get back, and then you just let the guy skate right by you, and then you're like, bullshit ass. Bullshit ass stick check to try to get back. That's bad. That is bad. And what about Austin Matthews? Has he scored a goal in this series? Nope. Nopers. He's another guy that needs to answer the bell because he didn't answer the bell for Team USA in the Four Nations, and he's not doing it now with Toronto. That is why a lot of people thought whoever won the Lightning Panthers series was going to go to the Eastern Conference Final because they didn't trust the Toronto Maple Leafs. Nothing has changed. Well, the head coach has changed. Craig Berube's behind the bench. He's talking about how guys like they just, they were passengers last night. They were. I don't know how Brendan Shanahan still keeps his job. I don't understand. I mean, the goaltender, Stolarz, obviously, he's not playing. Wool's in that. Neither one of those guys really stands out to me as a top-tier netminder. The defensive mindset, I think you get Tanev, Carlo. Like, you have some better guys defensively. But it's about leadership. It's about the guys at the top. Listen, I think you look at, in sports, why certain teams are successful versus why certain teams aren't. And you just look at the top, just go to the top. Whether it's the owner, whether it's the general manager, whether it's the head coach, whether it's the captain of the team. I mean, Teams fall apart all the time. Just give me anything. Just give me any team. Name a team in the chat. Give me a team in the chat, that any team in professional sports right now, either a good team or a bad team. Give it to me. And I'm going to tell you why they're good or why they're bad. And I'm going to look right at the top. Come on, chat. Come put as many teams as there as you want. Give me a team with a great leadership core. Give me a team with a crappy leadership core. The Atlanta Threshers. Boom. No, that doesn't count. Give me a current team, Benny. Come on, you son of a gun. SRQ Tom, Jets. Which one? Winnipeg or New York? Give me one. Winnipeg or New York? SRQ Tom. I'll take either one. Boom, 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 boom. New York Jets. All right, boom. There you go. All right, where's the problem with the New York Jets? It goes all the way to top with Woody Johnson, right? Robert Saleh, Aaron Rodgers last year, right? The leadership. Where is the leadership? When you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers with the ayahuasca and, you know, all the stuff that you're coaching one player versus 52 rather than all 53. That never was going to work, ever. And you had good talent on the team. That's the thing. You can have talented players. You can have a roster filled with really, really good guys on it. But if your leadership is not there, you're screwed. Give me some more teams outside of the Washington Bullets and the Tampa Mutiny. Give me good teams, give me bad teams, and we'll talk about leadership, and you can point right to it. All right, we'll look at a team last night. The Minnesota Timberwolves, able to win that game. Anthony Edwards, the leader of that team, taking over at home. Didn't matter. It didn't matter that Golden State had nothing to lose. Didn't matter that they were playing their ass off. Didn't matter. Anthony Edwards was the leader. He takes tough shots. He plays tough defense. Chris Finch is a head coach that is a no-nonsense guy. You have Mike Conley there, a veteran point guard that has been around forever. And everything in line, right? I'll throw another one if you want. Thank you, Tom. Thank you. The Indiana Pacers. Love it. Don't love the Pacers. And I really, really hope that we see a Knicks-Pacers Eastern Conference final. But why does it work? Why does it work there in Indiana? You have one of the best coaches in the league in Rick Carlisle. That guy has been everywhere. He's an NBA champion. This is a guy who's a player in the league, right? They're tough. They play good defense. They're versatile. They have guys off the bench like Nembhard and all these other guys that may not be household names that come in and do their job. They have Pascal Siakam that does a great job. He could do anything offensively, defensively. And you have your best player, Tyrese Halliburton, who gained leadership experience playing for Team USA in the Olympics, even though he didn't play a lot. Go back and watch the Olympics. One great thing about the Olympics, if you watch that team, and all eyes are going to go, how great it was to see LeBron play with Steph Curry, play with Kevin Durant. Phenomenal. I don't cheer for any of the three of those guys, but when they're rocking the red, white, and blue, it was just really cool to be able to cheer for them for once. But go back and look at Tyrese Halliburton. He didn't play a ton, but he was the first guy off the bench. He thoroughly enjoyed the experience, and he endeared himself to those top players in the NBA. You saw LeBron tweet about him the other day saying, Halliburton's overrated. I can't believe that. You're not going to do that unless you've proven that you're a good dude. And Halliburton's public enemy number one in my eye. He's the modern age Reggie Miller to me. And I hope that he and Jalen Brunson square off like we saw them in a WWE SmackDown ring about, a year ago. But he makes big shots. He takes big shots. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. He's there for his teammates at all times. I mean, that leadership is so important. You can beat a team that has more talent than you if you have better leaders. Because when the tough get going, the going gets tough, the tough get going, right? When you look at this team with the Tampa Bay Lightning, why were they able to win a Stanley Cup in a bubble without their captain? Because the leadership was there with John Cooper and Victor Hedman and the rest of those guys and Ryan McDonough, right? Think about that. That leadership, that comes through when everything else falls apart. Your leaders are there and they find a way. Why do you think Boston won last night? Boston beat the Knicks last night. Yeah, they didn't even have their best player. I would have bet my freaking house that the Celtics were going to beat the Knicks last night. The heart of a champion. They got leaders like Horford and like these are champions. They weren't going to go out like that. Even though I don't think they're going to win the series, I knew last night they were going to give it everything they had. And that was hey, we're champs. And, it may not be our year again, and it may be kind of the final time that we're going to be together. But the final time wasn't going to be last night. And Benny says, 2003 Bucks, great leadership. Rondé, Derrick Brooks, Warren Sapp wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for Ian Beckles. I don't know so much about that. But Ian is in contention for one of the 150 greatest Buccaneers of all time. So he's very, very happy with that. One of the greatest Tampa Bay media members of all time, in the top 150 of all time, Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com. You made the top 150. How does it feel?
It feels like there's only about 140 available for being considered. So that's how 150 feels.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm good, man. Still trying to adjust to this whole offseason stuff. It's always a weird transition going from 100 to 0 in a snap. And I can't imagine what the players and staff and everybody have to go through. It's tough. It's a difficult transition. And I've been doing it for a long time, and I struggle with it every year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm myself too. I mean, we're traveling back and forth. It's a rat race, and all of a sudden it stops. And I know you usually kind of write that story at the end of every year too, about the suddenness of the finality of the season. And it's almost like you feel left out a little bit, right? When you see hockey still going, and then you see like the brackets on the side, and then you see like the Tampa Bay Lightning logo like faded off in the back. You're like, damn, man, I wish I was still traveling or covering this team or, going to morning skate. But that's the reality of the situation. Before we talk Bolts, I want to ask you what I was just talking about with the Maple Leafs. I wasn't buying this team being any different than anything else, but I feel like last night was in such a bad way, symbolic of what this Toronto Maple Leafs franchise is all about. You have this entire series right in front of you, and you lay the biggest possible egg. That was an ostrich egg that they laid last night. I mean, 6-1, and I don't even know if it was that close. They score a goal at the end of the game. I mean, I don't think there's any way. Just think about this. Think about this, E. We just talked about traveling. Think about the Toronto players, the Toronto staff, and some of the Toronto media traveling down to South Florida, knowing what could be in store for them in Game 6. They haven't shown me the type of mettle or fortitude that they would win this game against the Panthers at all.
Yeah, and I don't know if it defines the franchise just so much as it defines this iteration of the team.
This era.
Yeah, it's so much promise with Matthews and Marner and Nylander and Tavares, the core four, Morgan Riley. It's like as bad as Lightning fans are feeling. I mean, it could be a lot worse. And I know Toronto got to the second round, but look, this series is not over. I mean, you could always go down to South Florida and win a game and force a Game 7, which would be an interesting situation if it gets there. But it's to watch that team last night perform the way they did. I don't know if anybody was following me on social media, but every time the Panthers scored a goal, I had a little Ted Lasso meme kind of going to kind of describe how things were going for the Leafs. Everything was from the Leafs perspective, right? Because as much as it's about Florida, it's about Toronto. That's where all the eyes are at. All the eyes are looking at the team in blue over there to see how they're going to react, how they're going to handle this situation of the adversity, right? Look, I felt that having won the first two games, and then once they blew the 3-1 lead in a couple of shifts in the second period of game number 3, it felt like the Leafs were done.
Yeah, here we go again.
Like it's too hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's too hard. The Panthers obviously have been there. They've won it. They've been to 2 straight cup finals. They understand, as Connor McDavid most famously said, to dig the F down.
Right.
They know what that means. These Leafs don't know. Look, when they finally got over their hump and beat the Lightning a couple years ago, they were celebrating like they won the cup.
Right.
Like we saw the report from Chris Johnson, they brought more beers into the locker room. And then they turned around and got swept by the Panthers in 4 games in round 2. And, when they had a 3-0 series lead against the Senators and then lost the next 2, Like, you could feel it.
Yeah.
Like, you could feel it all the way down here, the tension of that series. That was the series that went the longest in terms of days, and it started 3-0. Right? So now here you have this team, and anything can happen. They have the opportunity to change the narrative. That's
Right.
kind of what has to happen. And, I saw this from the Lightning in 2015, right? They were down 2 goals in the third period, about to go down 3-1 in the series to Detroit. Tyler Johnson and Andre Palat rescued them, scored 2 goals, and they were the ones that hooked up for the game winner in overtime to make that series 2-2. But they went back to Detroit, or they came back here and they lost. They were shut out in game 5, going back to Detroit, and you felt it was over, right?
Mm-hmm.
They found a way to win game 6, come back here and win game 7. Now, that team had Ben Bishop. The Leafs have Joseph Wall, who I think look, every time we see Wall face the Lightning, he looks like a Vezina guy. Right. He certainly hasn't looked that way in this series, and certainly not last night with a couple of those goals. But yeah, this you saw it. Fans were throwing jerseys on the ice last night. I mean, it's just
wow.
And those aren't cheap. We know those are not cheap jerseys to send over the glass. And if you're a Leafs fan, it sucks. I think for the rest of us from the outside, we kind of enjoy the entertainment value of it.
Oh yeah, it's great when you're not involved, especially a team like Toronto that's been overhyped. What was your biggest takeaway? Now we're a couple of weeks removed from exit interviews. Out of all the things that you heard on that day, what was the kind of the number one thing that stood out to you?
Probably just the sting. We heard the word sting a couple of times from a couple of guys, because this was a team that was built to do more than they did last year. It just was. And it felt different, sure. The way that they played the Panthers in this series compared to last year felt different for sure. You still ended up with the same result. And I think that's what kind of hurt a lot of these guys. Because they felt they had a team that could do it. I mean, Vasilevsky was Vasilevsky, and Ryan McDonough was back, and you felt that their 5-on-5 gameplay was good. And again, I think if they faced anybody but Florida in the first round, I'd like their chances of getting out of it. And I like their chances against the Panthers in this round. But they hadn't faced the Panthers with Tkachuk back and with Marchand there, and right, like they hadn't seen that lineup, and that third line from Florida just kind of took it to them, and really was the difference in the series in a lot of ways. So I think just the sting of how the season ended and the manner in which it ended is kind of what I took out of it. And, that and listening to Nikita Kucherov, right? We don't hear from him much. And when we do, he rarely says much at all. But I thought he was very informative and insightful. I asked him about what it takes to beat pressure like the Panthers give, because them and Carolina are the only team that will pressure the puck, and they don't give you anything free. And he talked about making the right reads under that pressure, right? Like that was a very insightful thing for him. And, he's probably already back on the ice working on his game, getting ready for next season. He said, hey, you want to come? Next week it starts, and that would be this week, obviously. So those were the two biggest things that I kind of took out of how the team felt coming off of that suddenness of the end of their season. It's like, okay, thanks. We're good. We'll see it. Maybe we'll see you next year, right? Like it's always the weirdness of a season ending suddenly and shorter than what you were anticipating.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think the one guy whose words stood out to me the most were Andre Vasilevsky, because if you guys listened, Vasi was not of the, well, we were so close. Vasi was more of, I'm looking at the Panthers and how resilient and how consistent they were. I feel like Vasi was looking at it differently. Like, we do have to change things. We do have to get better. We do have to be more consistent, because that's the only way you're going to win. And for all the discussion of like, well, they would beat any team, but you got to be able to beat anybody because their goal is to be the Stanley Cup champions. Their goal is not to just get to the playoffs or get through the playoffs. And I think one of the other things too, when I look at it, is, the future of John Cooper, which was, probably a story that shouldn't have been, and also the Isaac Howard situation. And I want to ask you about this, E, because he gets a lot of credit, deservedly so. He's a guy that gets grace, and he's earned it. But there's been some missteps here in the last, I'd say, 36 months by Julien Brisebois that has hindered the growth and the progression of this team. Doesn't mean that I think they should get rid of him. Doesn't mean I don't think he's a phenomenal general manager. But you look at the handling of the Stamkos situation, the trade for the Jeannot, the signing of Connor Sheary, Atkinson, the whole Isaac Howard thing. Like, there are 5 big things that are, he's done a lot of good things. What do you say no for? What do you think?
They're not. No? Those are not 5 big things.
Okay.
They're not 5 big things. And look, the Tanner Jeannot trade, gave up a lot for him. Didn't work out.
Okay.
But now everybody's saying, hey, we need a tough guy. Well, you had one. You ran him out of town, right? Because you didn't like the way that he played. Well, if you want a guy that just wants to sit there, and I've seen plenty of people, give me a guy that only has to play 3 or 4 times a year. Well, you had him. And you ran him out of town.
Right.
Didn't fit, obviously. And look, fair or not, we tie what a team gives up to how the player performs. And that's not fair on the player, but that's the way we view it. Right?
But it's fair on the general manager, though, because he's the guy that sets that price and he's the guy that executes that price, right? I mean, we got to call a spade, like we can't. We love the guy,
but if you're going to put down Julien Brisebois for acquiring Tanner Jeannot, you got to put it in the same context with Barclay Goodrow and Brandon Hagel and
I'm talking. But those deals have all happened before the Tanner Jeannot thing. I'm talking about Jeannot forward, right? Like, I'm not saying he's a bad. I already said he's a fantastic general manager. I think he's one of the best in the game, but there has been missteps. I think we
and tell me where's the misstep with how he handled Isaac Howard. Because this is more Howard.
That's my question. Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, this is more Howard than the team because the team was a little hamstrung, and maybe you could pinpoint to how they manage the cap, but you have to manage the cap for your team right now. Right. So, there wasn't any cap space to bring Howard in right away, and I think if there was, maybe that changes things. But when the player pushes back saying, I don't want to go to Syracuse, I'm not going – basically he said, I'm not going to Syracuse. I mean, what can a general manager do there? He doesn't have the cap space, right? He doesn't have the ability to bring that player in like you want.
So do you think that changed? Do you think that
yes.
So you think that early on he was okay with going to Syracuse?
Hey, you had conversations. We listened to Julie, and I've talked to other people in the organization. They were very confident that Isaac Howard was going to join there.
That's what I say. He brought it up to us during the fireside chat. Like, we didn't bring it up. He brought it up.
Yeah.
So we were all walking out of there that day going, all right, well, he brought it up. He's probably going to be a part of this team. So you don't think that, I guess that's my whole thing. All right, let's say that's the point, though. So is it just one of those things where you just give the benefit of the doubt to Julien in that aspect of, knowing
I just don't know how he could have handled it any different. If the player is going to be this way, I don't know how Julien could have handled any different because you don't want to push aside somebody that's been loyal to you or push aside cap space or save cap space for something that may not happen. Now, what really screwed this up was Michigan State getting knocked out in the first round of the regionals. If Michigan State had reached the Frozen Four like they were expected to, well, that's 2 weeks down the road.
Right.
And by the time he would have been done, I think this whole situation plays out differently. Right. So a lot of circumstantial stuff went against the Lightning in this situation because he wanted to sign right away. And look, from his standpoint, I get it. Right. He's looking around and a lot of the guys that he's played with, especially those that he came up through the National Development Program with,
right.
The Boyums, the Ryan Leonards, the Frank Nazars, they're all in the NHL already. Well, he's just as good as them. He was a leading scorer on that team as last year in the National Development Program. So, from his standpoint, I get it. There's the ego that kind of drives some of these situations sometimes too. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, you got to have one.
Yeah. And so he's looking at it and go, well, wait a second. All these guys are jumping straight to the NHL. Why do I have to go to the AHL? And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure somebody will, but I believe Elliott reported that Howard and his camp used the and I'm paraphrasing here, I can make more money in NIL than I can in the AHL.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that kind of NIL kind of changed some of the situations here too, because if you look at it during the Big Ten championship, when we were talking a lot about Isaac Howard,
right,
you saw the team promoting him.
Yeah.
Adam Hall, Michigan State grad, was on the broadcast with Paul Kennedy holding up those Be Like Ike shirts and telling fans how that they could buy those. And some of those proceeds were going directly to Ike Howard as part of the NIL. And then it just went away. Like they mentioned that he won the Hobie Baker. Things. So
they
everything was
stuff on social media. Yeah.
Things were moving in a very positive direction until they weren't.
So why? But that's my whole point, though. Is like, so I don't understand why the Lightning were surprised. Like, if he went to go see him 4 times this year, like his talks with in the beginning of Isaac Howard's college season, Isaac Howard and his representatives didn't know that Julian would want him to go down to Syracuse before he went to the big club.
I don't know if that conversation was had. I think,
but that's what I'm saying. Like, if that's his mode of operation.
But hey, it has to be in your mind.
No, I know.
If you're a player that caliber, you have to understand that that's a possibility, and the team controls. This. So this is the difference between ego and pride. Right? Ego can drive you, but your pride can hurt you. And I think in some ways, Howard being asked to go down to Syracuse hurt his pride. And he has leverage, right? So he used it. So his pride pushed him in another direction to say, I don't want to go to Syracuse. Okay, fine. I'm done with you guys. I'm going to use my leverage.
So do you think that maybe changed? Do you think like maybe he knew the circumstance early on in the year, and then
I don't think he wanted to believe it.
And then as the year went on, and his success probably was his downfall because he just kept playing better and getting better and getting better. And then it was just like, all right, well, this is how they usually do.
Going.
Yeah, so but so I just don't. So you don't make an adjustment there if you're Julian and the Lightning for a guy like this.
Personally, yeah, I would have.
But that's my point though, right? Like, so if you agree, if you think that, and I think that, right?
That doesn't mean it's a mistake by Julian.
Like,
but it's just the way I think and the way you think.
But no, I understand that, but
because from my standpoint,
he's not perfect. He's not perfect. Like,
no, he's not. But no general manager is.
No, of course. But that's my point. Again, I think it's important to be able to critique a guy that has had a fantastic track record because he's not perfect. And I it's hard for me to believe that he handled this Isaac Howard and he's not at fault at all. Like
of course
he couldn't have checked in, and especially knowing that, and I'm not talking about not bringing Stamkos back, but when it comes to the whole Stamkos situation of not getting in contact with his representatives and things like that, where there was a question of the bedside manner and the lines of communication. How do you not? Like, that's how we make better decisions in the future. That's how we try to put pieces together by using all the information that we do have. And I'm with you. Maybe he did tell him early on in the year, like, you're probably going to go down to AHL. But when the guy's playing well and then you're promoting him on social media, maybe it's a good idea to check back in with him to be like, hey, we still want you to go to Syracuse. Then if Isaac Howard does, like, of course, we're not privy to all that information, but I mean, I don't know if Julian gets a 100% pass here for his role in this entire situation.
But I don't think it's necessarily a mistake. I think it's just the way things worked out. It's two sides that have different rationale in how they got to the point that they got to. And look, if you want to place blame on one over the other, that's fine. I'm not usually that kind of a person. That's just not who I am.
Yeah, and I don't think Isaac Howard, and I don't think it's all Julian and not Isaac Howard either. But like you just mentioned with the pride too, like, is there a pride thing on the Julian side too? Like, well, this is the
organizationally, yes.
Yeah, so I mean,
so
because we just talked about it, like the social media posts, like, that was almost like, hey, you're in a relationship with somebody, it's not going well, let's take a couple of selfies at the Strawberry Festival, and hey, we're such a happy couple. That's where I was kind of like, all right, well, now looking back on it, if the relationship wasn't great, was that really in good faith, or was that one of those things, you know what I mean? Like, where was that? Where was the motive from that?
To me, like, you talk about pride with the player, there's an organizational pride.
Right.
But there's also an organizational track record.
Mm-hmm.
They have done things in a way which has helped them win championships. And if a player wants to dig their heels in and say, no, I don't want to do it your way, could you, like, here's the catch-22 if you're in Julian's shoes, the organizational shoes. If you give in to Isaac Howard on this situation, well, now you've opened a door.
Yeah, you're right.
right? So I think if you're looking at things from an organizational standpoint, there's been one player under Julian/Steve Yzerman who has bypassed the American Hockey League and come straight to the NHL when they didn't have AHL eligibility, right? Mikhail Sergachev and Jonathan Duran were both back to juniors or NHL. They were 19, couldn't go to the AHL. But it's Braden Point. And Braden Point actually got in a handful of games in Syracuse the year before. You know, his final year, junior, he played some games in Syracuse and then made the team out of camp. But, and this is the difference between college players and junior players, Braden Point had been to 2 training camps. He had shown himself in training camp the year before in 15, 16. He had proven he was this close to making that team this year, but they felt another year in junior was going to serve him better than starting out in the NHL. He's not the biggest guy in the world and everything like that. So that's the organization can say, look, Nikita Kucherov, we needed to develop Nikita Kucherov. He played half a season or 2 months in the American Hockey League, and look how that worked out. Anthony Cirelli, look how that worked out. So the organizational has pride, yes, but they also have a proven track record of developing players. They have been a model for developing young players. The issue here is they've never had a college player of this caliber.
That's my whole fly in the ointment there of the entire thing of at what point do you, and I'm with you because you're right. You acquiesce to this one guy, then the next prospect is going to be like, well, you did that for Isaac Howard. Well, how come he didn't have to do it? But there is that caveat, Eric, of like, and you and I have talked about this. They haven't had a prospect like this in a while.
Like not in college.
Not in college either, right?
And
like
college is different.
Yeah.
Because college has that leverage, right? Those guys have the right to play out their 4 years in college and then pick their team. And that's part of the CBA. I'd like to see that changed. You know, why do players who go to college have that special privilege, whereas guys in the CHL or Europe don't have that? Like, why do they get special exemption? So I would like to see that change. I don't think it's going to. I don't think the Players Association is going to want to give that up in negotiations. But personally, I'd like to see that go by the wayside. But they've never had a guy that you could legitimately talk about as a Hobey Baker candidate. Obviously, he went on to win it. You know, they've had guys who have finished in the top 10, and they've had guys but they've never had a guy who finished in the top 3. And certainly they never had a guy who won it. And so, you know, it is a different situation and how to deal with this. But I mean, you know, some other guys that come to mind, you know, Justin Schultz. Remember when Justin Schultz came out of college? I think he was at Wisconsin, and Anaheim held his rights. You know, great player coming out of college, right shot defenseman. He exercised his rights.
Yeah, Adam Fox did the same thing too.
Yeah, and he was traded around a couple of times, right?
Yeah,
he would go from Carolina to Calgary
to the Rangers,
the Rangers before he signed,
Yep.
because he wasn't going to sign with those two teams.
No.
Now, having said all that, I don't expect Howard, who's with Team USA at the World Championships, he's dressing as a 13th forward, so he's not playing a prominent role for them. But if he can get into a game or two and get some ice time and showcase himself, it's just going to help the Lightning.
What's the next step, E? Do you think they trade him? Do you think they just let him go?
I think he's traded.
At the draft?
I think he gets traded at the draft.
Yeah.
And you know, if, again, this is nothing I know, but behind the scenes, if the Lightning are not going to his representation and saying, hey, find a team.
You have to, right?
And we'll work out a trade.
You have to, right? That's the kind of thing.
Right. Because I don't think deep down in my heart, I really don't think Isaac Howard wants to go back and play another year of college. I think he's ready to start his pro career, and he can always change his mind if his rights get traded. Look, he could change his mind if he wanted to sign with the Lightning. He could, but he lost the opportunity to sign his entry-level contract, burn it, and then start the countdown clock to free agency 1 year sooner. So that is gone. All right, so he can't do that now. But he could still sign a contract prior to August or September, leave school, and start his pro career. That's why I fully anticipate, with the way things have transpired, that Isaac Howard will be dealt at the draft or around the draft or before free agency, one of those two things. the question is going to be, what kind of a return do you? Can you get a Jamie Drysdale type player?
Yeah.
He's certainly in that caliber.
Better than Gauthier.
Yeah. So it's just a question if you can find the right team and the right deal to make it work. But you're not going to get a haul.
Yeah.
You're not getting Quinn Hughes.
No, but you need a guy like that, like a young stud player, change of scenery type, maybe a guy in a bad team, Trevor Zegras, maybe something like but Trevor Zegras? No,
I don't think I want Zegras.
We know Isaac Howard's not going to be on the team next year, but what other changes do you foresee as far as the construction of this roster? Guys, coming back, guys being traded. Do you see any big names possibly being on the move for this team?
I don't. Just listening to Julian talk and some of the players talk about how much they believed in this team, how much they like the team. I mean, look, Julian, shot off those numbers to us about only 8 teams in the salary cap era finished top 6 in goals for, goals against, power play, and penalty kill, and none of them have gone on to win the Stanley Cup.
That's crazy.
Like that's just playoff hockey.
Mm-hmm.
So I think obviously there's tweaking and like this is not a comparison to 2019, but I think the mindset is the same. Okay, we feel we had a good team. We feel that we were close. It didn't work out for us, but we feel that we're close. They're not an organization with Julian at the helm that reacts emotionally.
Yeah, you're right.
Right? They react analytically. They take a step back and analyze things. So I fully expect that we won't see big names moved. I don't think Nick Perkins will be back. We'll see about Glendening. He's not the biggest guy, but he plays a very solid role on this team. We talked about the lack of size amongst their forward group. Do you tweak things that way? So I look for more tweakings, and then we'll see. There's a little bit more salary cap space to work with now, right? The cap is jumping, $7.5 million, I think.
So where does that money go? Yeah.
Some of it's already going to Victor Hedman, who gets a little bit of a raise with his extension kicking in. Jonas Johansson got a little bit of a raise on his 2-year extension. So there's pieces of it kind of being chipped away. We'll see what they want to do with Yanni Gourde. But if we're talking about bigger forwards, Yanni Gourde certainly doesn't fit that one. Bigger heart, yes. Bigger forward, not necessarily. So I expect that the bottom lines to kind of be tweaked around a little bit. And where does Bjorkstrand kind of fit in now? Is he a top 9? Is he a top 6? They got a year to kind of figure that out. Do they look to extend him? Right, he's a 5.5, 5.25, I think is what his current cap hit is this year. So I expect offseason tweaking. I don't expect offseason changes in a lot of ways because this is still a good hockey team.
Yeah, and I look at some of the positions bottom. McDonough and Chernak obviously going to come back, and Hedman and Moser. I feel like the top 4 guys. That bottom pairing is going to be interesting to see because you and I both spoke about a little surprise that Max Crozier was the guy that didn't get more of a look this year. They put all their eggs in that basket of rotating that Perbix, Radish, Emil Lilleberg thing, and they kind of go with Lilleberg Crozier, right, as the third pair. You would think going into next year.
I would think so, especially. With the chemistry those two guys showed at Syracuse, with the chemistry they showed when Crozier was up last year, right? Like those two were so good together. You hope that you could recreate that magic. Yeah. Or recreate that chemistry from the two. And if you look at Lilleberg, boy, what valuable minutes he's getting right now at the World Championships.
Captain.
He's 4th in average ice time among all players there. So he's taken on a very prominent role for Norway, which almost shocked the U.S. yesterday, right? Down 5-1. They came back to tie at 5-5. Now he took the penalty in overtime that led to the game-winning goal. But, but those are valuable minutes. And I know it's not best on best, but it's still top level,
huge,
senior level. We've seen Erik Chernak grow from there. Braden Point when he went. Brandon Hagel last year got some valuable minutes, playing for Team Canada in that situation. So those are valuable learning, especially for a guy like Lilleberg. I think we forget sometimes the lack of experience that Lilleberg has. Yeah. Right. John Tortorella used to always say it takes 250 to 300 games for defensemen to figure things out. Right. He's not there yet. He's only got he doesn't have 2 full seasons under his belt. He came up halfway or, a couple of months into last season. So this was his first real full season in the NHL. And I think that the Lightning still see a lot of promise in him. He's obviously got a lot of size. He's physical. There's a lot of elements to like about Lilleberg. But unfortunately, when he makes a mistake, it tends to be a pretty bad one.
Yeah.
And those stand out, right? So, but he's getting valuable time there. But yeah, I would think that if assuming you let Perbix go, Radish is still under contract for a year. But I think he would just slide Lilleberg and Crozier in. And then that will allow you, to let J.J. Moser fit into a role. Like Moser was all over the map this year, right? Obviously right side on Hedman, early in games, late in games, but he would take shifts on the left side with Radish or Perbix, and just the way that, however, Rob Zettler was kind of running the bench there. But that would seem to me like a perfect assimilation into next season to kind of shore that up, because, I'm with you. I like their top four.
Offensively, as far as bringing in another guy, what kind of forward? You mentioned the size, but I mean, is it a middle six guy? Because I think you look at who they have, like where I think Connor Geekie, right? I mean, he's another guy where there's some good players on this team, man. And I looked at that Geekie, Nick Paul, Gonsalves line, and I'm like, that could feed families, man. I mean, that there was just something about that line, right? So then do you put Bjorkstrand with Cirelli and Hagel, and then you put, Gensel back up with that top line? I mean, if you had it the way you had it and all 9 guys are healthy, because I think the fourth line they're going to have to figure things out. They bring Gord back on that fourth line. Do you bring Glendening back? What happens? You're right. Like, figure out the fourth line when you get it. What happens with a guy like Mitchell Chafee, who, when he came back in the lineup, I thought he did some good things there at the end of the playoffs. If you had it the way you had it, who would be the 3 lines, their top 9 there?
Well, I think Bjorkstrand goes with Cirelli and Hagel. I think that's what they had as an idea when they acquired him. There must have been something they didn't like in practice, because we never really saw it in the game, which surprised me. We saw it run those lines in practice early on, but we never saw it in the game. They'll have a whole training camp to kind of work together and see if there can kind of be a fit. But yeah,
and they do that, right? Like, where it seems, because I remember when they acquired Hagel, Coleman and Goodrow, and they're like, oh, those guys will play together. And then in the beginning, it was like, no, they're not going to play them together. They separated. And then like a couple weeks into it, it was just like, and then they couldn't get apart.
Well, and Hagel's the best example there, because, they brought him in with the idea of being a top 6. But you look at the way that he played in that run to the Cup final in 2022. He was in a checking line role with Cirelli and Killorn.
Yeah,
he wasn't in the top, because he had a little bit more of a adaptation period as opposed to a guy like Nick Paul. And then you look at Hagel coming in for his first full training camp, and how much he felt comfortable, much more comfortable he felt coming into that camp, and really kind of found his way there. And now he's a 35, 90 point guy. So I mean, Bjorkstrand's a little bit older. Obviously, he's 30 years old. He's more advanced in his career than Hagel was at the time. But I think, they'll give that a look in training camp to see how it goes. I really like the way Gage Gonsalves came on the last couple of months of the season. He looks so much more confident in his playmaking ability and everything else. And I thought he was one of their better guys in that series against the Panthers. Right. Like, he was consistently on the puck, consistently confident with the puck. So that's a good thing to see. So, yeah, it's the fourth line. Chafee has to use the body. I think he led all forwards in hits, or at least average hits per game. I think, Gergensons is obviously going to be there. But I don't know. You look at the way that Florida was able to kind of push them around a little bit, and be, some would say, cross the line physical with them, similar to what the Panthers are doing to the Leafs. Do you have a guy that can withstand that and hold up to that? Right. And so that's the area where I think you end up looking to tweak at. I think you look at their top 9 right now. I don't want to say it's set, because I never say anything is set after coming off a season and going to training camp, because anything can happen. But you look at the 9 we kind of just talked about there. That's a pretty good top 9 if they continue to play the way they did at the end of the season.
Yeah, and I just wonder, like, if you do make a change there, if you do trade one of the big guys, like, because who do you trade? I don't know if they will trade any of them. Like, who do you get? Who do you trade and get? A return that you thought that you were going to get?
You're not going to get it.
Yeah,
you're not going to get it. So look, I know obviously there's a lot of talk around Nikita Kucherov, who we found out was dealing with the wrist injury from February on, about him being the guy, right? Because he didn't show up in the playoffs and didn't perform to the level that you want to see a guy who led the league in scoring perform at. And I get the criticism, but he's a generational type talent, and he's still just 31 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He's still, getting better. And, you talk about leadership. Okay, so Nikita Kucherov is not the most vocal guy. He's not a guy who's going to stand up in front of the room and yell at people, but he is going to show you how to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We just talked about the Camp Kucherov.
Right.
That's leadership, and like he was being serious when he said, okay, it starts next week. Like, I know we all kind of got a chuckle out of it, but he was dead serious. That's who Nikita Kucherov is. I work at my game. This is how I work on my game. You want to come be a part of that? Come and be ready to work. Like, his work ethic is unbelievable. We don't see it, and he rarely talks about it. But there are not anybody who works harder than Nikita Kucherov. There might be some who work as hard, but there is nobody that works harder at his game than Nikita Kucherov. To me, that's a form of leadership that probably doesn't get talked about in leadership circles. I mean, there's a reason why he wears an A, and it's not because of the way he speaks to the media.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? It's the other things that he does, and that's just part of leader. Because it used to be a rotational A.
Mm-hmm.
He had it all year long.
Yeah. What's going on lightninginsider.com, man? Everything wrapped up throughout the year now.
Yeah, I still have some stuff I want to get to that came out of exit interview day. I was out of town over the weekend for a funeral, so I've been out of loop for.
Sorry for your loss.
Thank you for 4 or 5 days. I'm still trying to get caught up in freelance work and everything else that's kind of going on. The TV deal that was announced yesterday.
Oh yeah, what do we know about
the
that?
Lightning?
Is
Yeah,
that
so
good?
look, it's a good thing because. I mean, how many people have you heard from? And I know I've heard from, where can I watch the game tonight? Where can I watch the game tonight? Now you're going to have, if you're in the local region, if you're in the viewing market, which extends all the way up to North Florida, right? This is Orlando, Jacksonville, Pensacola. This entire region is the Tampa Bay's viewing region. You'll be able to watch those games for free.
That's great.
You're either going to get it through Channel 66, which hasn't launched yet. It's not launching until July 1st. But it's going to be in the Tampa St. Pete market. You can actually watch those games with an HD antenna. You can go pick one up at Walmart for $20.
Wow.
Right? Plug it in the back of your TV. You're going to get a bunch of free channels, and Channel 66 WXPX, I think is the call letters. You can watch the games there for free. If you're outside of the Tampa Bay area, but in the Tampa Bay viewing market, you'll be able to watch the game on the Lightning app for free.
Wow.
Now you're out of state, still requires an ESPN Plus subscription. Everything in terms of blackouts and, if there's a national game, it's not going to be on Scripps, which is a new partner. You're still going to have to watch that game on TNT, ESPN Plus, whatever it is that you have a subscription for. So you're still going to have to watch those games, but there's no more chasing the team around the dial. Right. There's no more conflicts with the Rays like we saw during the playoffs. Well, A couple of games were on Fox Sports or FanDuel Florida, a couple were on FanDuel Sun, you're chasing things around because of conflicts with other partnerships that FanDuel had. You're not going to have that anymore. You look at, the Florida Panthers, was their first year, and I think there was a lot of discussions between the two teams. How did this work out? Yeah. And, I think the Lightning liked what they saw.
Yeah, I heard a lot of good things.
Look, when Steve Goldstein was here, the Panthers play-by-play guy, he talked it up a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So that's going to be the Lightning situation starting next year. That's a win for fans. Yeah. It's a win for fans because now you don't have to worry about it. They'll still carry first-round playoffs, but blackout restrictions still apply. If you're in Orlando, you're not going to be able to watch it on ESPN Plus.
Right.
You're gonna have to watch it through the app, or if you have access to this Channel 66 in some way. I don't know how all of that works, but you will still be blacked out in the local viewing area from watching it on an ESPN Plus.
There you go, man. Good stuff there. And anytime we can watch it for quote unquote free, we will take it. Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com. Use that promo code JNZ. Get $10 off this season. Not just this season, but every recurring season. Support local. This has been fun doing this weekly. Enjoy your time off, my friend. And we'll talk some hockey again soon, buddy. Thank you.
Hey, yeah, feel free to reach out, man. There's still playoffs going on. I'll be more than happy to talk hockey with anybody.
You got it, buddy. And tell Kevin, I saw Kevin a couple weeks ago at the Rowdies game. I think that they lost 5-0 that night. So you can definitely place the blame firmly on his head. It is all his fault. Appreciate it, brother. Thanks, buddy.
Right, be well.
All right, see ya. The one and only Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com. He is the man. Again, subscribe to lightninginsider.com. Just because the Lightning route doesn't mean you can't subscribe to lightninginsider.com. You never know what news is going to break over the last couple of years, and Double E is locked in. And of course, he's got some stories from exit interviews. What a great time as well over at Amalie Arena a couple of weeks ago. Before we go, let's let everybody know what's going on here in the Tampa Bay area with our UT, with our USF right now as we speak. UT in a regional matchup right here at UT in downtown Tampa. They're up 1-0 over Albany State in the bottom of the second inning. Bases loaded, 2 outs. UT keep on pushing forward. We have an RBI walk from Maddox King, Tampa Catholic. This is pretty cool. Tampa Catholic grad Maddox King walks to bring in, it doesn't say who he brought it. Oh, no, Villegas won. He scored on a pass ball, excuse me. But he walked. Cole Russo, Jesuit grad, advances to second base. So, of course, congratulations to our Tampa baseball team and Joe Urso in the softball as well. So everybody out there, keep an eye on UT baseball, UT softball. Let me make sure that I have the schedule for, they punched their ticket to Super Regionals, and game 1 today is at 6 p.m. for softball. So good luck to the ladies there. The Tampa Spartans kick some butt in the D2 softball championship in the South Super Regional bracket. They're 43-9. Again, a game against AUM tonight at 6 p.m. Again, baseball up 1-0. USF baseball final regular season series against East Carolina starts tonight. I will be over there. Go usfbulls.com as all your information. We know that softball tomorrow, time to dance, noon, Tallahassee Regional, USF, and Auburn. Best of luck to Coach Ken Erickson and our Bulls. We'll be watching it here on the program. But again, baseball in action tonight, 6:30, first pitch there from Red McEwen Field. I'll be on the call on Bulls Unlimited on the radio side tonight. Tomorrow night at 6:30, and then Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock as well. And then how about our USF golf team? They punched the ticket to the program's 5th NCAA National Championships. Only 30 teams in the country make it to the Nationals, and boom, they are in. Shout out to USF Track as well. We're going to have Coach Steve Bradley from golf joining us on the program, Manana. So really a lot of good stuff going on with USF and UT. Go Bulls, go Spartans. We love you all. We love everybody here in the Tampa Bay area. We'll have, again, Coach Bradley joining us on the program tomorrow. I'm trying to reach out to our good friend Gabby Shirley, see if she can join us as well to talk about the TV deal and talk about all things Lightning as well. What a great show today. It was a good conversation with Double E, going back and forth there about Julian Breezebaugh and Isaac Howard. And listen, and I understand what E's saying, and you guys know me for when, I am a big time supporter, and I hope you guys listen to the chat that we had yesterday on the Beckles and Recher podcast. Man, we really get into some hard hitting conversations, and we really get into some stuff that nobody else really is going to have the balls to talk about, whether it's about race or religion or just like human nature stuff that people are scared because there's a vulnerability to those chats. But Ian and I, we're not afraid to have a discussion about stuff like that. And one of the things yesterday we were talking about was like media coverage and, covering the teams in the Tampa area and wanting to see them do well. And I think there is this kind of misnomer or this false belief that you can't cover a team and critique them properly and want to see them do well. It's a new age. It's a new way of media. And I know this is a conversation. I think it was Mike Tirico that brought it up recently about he doesn't care who the ESPN anchors' favorite teams are. It's like, okay, I get that. If it's dominating the conversation and it's just all about that, I get it. But I also think that it's almost disingenuous. Like, if you want the personality from the people, like, we all were sports fans. Like, if you're involved with sports at all in any capacity, you were a fan of some team growing up. I think there is a modicum of like responsibility to, I don't want to say be unbiased, but just like check your fandom a little bit. Nobody knows that better than me. I mean, I would have conversations with people that I worked with, and you guys know how much I love sports, and you know how much I love the Tampa teams. Do you think my love for teams just started when I was 20, when I moved down here? Like, I love. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. That's ESPN. Let me see if I can do that. I'm gonna have to text this guy back. I just lost my train of thought. I had to like keep my fandom a little bit to, keep it under control. Like, I was a huge Yankee fan, huge, and I still love the Yankees. And I know people don't like that, but doesn't mean I don't support them. It doesn't mean I don't support the Rays. I always look at it like I'm Archie and Olivia Manning. I didn't love Peyton more than Eli because Peyton was born first. Sorry, I know not everybody's like that, but I wasn't a casual fan. When your great-grandparents come off the boat from Switzerland and they're fans of Babe Ruth, like, that shit doesn't die. I didn't just become a Yankee fan when I was 17, And I like the Mets. My grandma loves the Mets. If you guys know my grandma, she loves the Mets, right? I grew up in the guy that changed my life when I was 9 years old was Mark Messier, guaranteeing a win, right? I love that Rangers team. Like, that changed everything for me. Love the Giants. Everybody knows how much I love the Knicks, right? But now I live in Tampa. I'm never going to forget where I'm from, ever. But I'm never going to disrespect where I am because I love it here. And I've lived here 20 years. And I want to see the Rays. And I want to see the Lightning and the Bucks and the Rowdies and the Sun and everybody do well. And when they play each other, then at the end of the day, I know I'm not just a normal person. I'm not a fan. I'm a person that's in the sports media. So for me, when those teams play, you know what I do? I crack open a cold one, and I don't drink beer, so it's probably a sparkling water, or maybe I'll Jack and Coke. I'll drink a Jack and Coke or a Jack and Ginger. Just the way it goes. I love you guys. Justin Pegg, would have been a great day to market an all Tampa Day with a unique situation, but that area is going to be a mess that day. It'd be great if the radio station could do it. I don't know if you cover this, but what the heck is going on September 21st? Rays at 12, NFL is doing 1 p.m. That's the way it goes, Justin. That happens in other markets, man. I went to a Philly game a couple of years ago, and there was 2 games going on at the same time. It's crazy, dude. It's crazy. Wild. Benny, no beer? No, I don't drink beer. I have migraines in my family. I get them. My sisters get them. My brother doesn't get them. Just me and my sisters. I never was a huge beer guy anyway. I mean, I drank Coronas, Bud Light, none of the other kind of beer. No kind of beer. Guinness, nah. No, I was never a beer drinker. And then now when I drink beer, I get bad headaches. So now I didn't like it, and now it makes me feel like crap. So I'm definitely not drinking it. I can't tell you the last time I drank a beer. I'm talking 12 to 15 years ago. Now, red wine, white wine, I don't care what wine it is. Old, young, new, old, cheap, expensive. I'll drink any kind of wine. It don't bother me. It just tastes like wine. It is what it is. But if I drink like to drink, I'll have like a Jack and Ginger, Jack Daniels and ginger ale, or I love Crown Royal, Crown and Ginger, or Crown and Sprite. But I'm not a big drinker, man. I'm a 2-drink kind of guy and move on. I was a little bit more of a smoker, I think, growing up than a drinker. But even then, like, I don't smoke anymore either. So, it's what it is. It is what it is, man. You had a good time when you were younger, and now I'm 40 and I don't know what I'm doing now. I really don't. I do know, actually. I'm going to USF tonight, baby. Cannot wait. Going to be some good stuff there as well. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for me. A big thank you to Rick Stroud, and a big thank you to Erik Erlendsson for joining us on the program. To all of you out there, man, the love and support has been just unbelievable. Unbelievable. Thank you guys so much. Newport Pleasure. It's so funny you said that. I used to smoke Newports too back in the day, Benny. I was the only person, like, out of my brother, my sisters. My mom and dad smoked years ago. That's what everybody did. But I smoked cigarettes when I was younger and quit. But I was never a chain smoker. Like, my friends were beer and cigarette guys, and they were big time smokers. Smoke a pack a day or a pack every 2 days. I don't have an addictive personality, so I was a smoker, but I was the kind of guy that like I would smoke like 2 or 3 cigarettes a day. That was it. And then I would like a pack of cigarettes to me would last like a week. My friends are like, that's it, bro. And I'm like, yeah, it is what it is. I would, you know what it is? I'm going to tell you this now, and it sounds terrible, and I don't care because I don't smoke anymore, right? There is nothing on this planet like when you wake up in the morning and you go sit on the porch and you have a cup of coffee and smoke a cigarette. I know that sounds so terrible. I know. I get it. But there's just something about that when you wake up in the morning, you know, you're going to go take a shower and you're going to everything. But just to wake up in the morning, go sit on the porch, you know, coffee and a cigarette and to just chill and do your thing. Again, I know that sounds so terrible, but I'm an old school mentality kind of guy, and that's just the way it goes. All right. Follow me on all social media platforms at Jay Recher. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. I love you all, man. Thank you for all the undying support. Let's keep this train going. 1,300 subscribers. My nephew Lawson wants us to get to 5,000. I don't know how the hell we're going to get there. Let's get to 1,500 first. We'll see you guys tomorrow at noon. I love you all right here on the Jay Recher.